Life is mundane and repetitive and cruel. And what is one to do with that truth? Hopefully not what Emma does. Don't do that. Don't do that. No. 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 Hey everybody. Welcome back to It's Too Late to Apologize Book Reviews. I'm Stella, and today we're going to be talking about Madame Bovary by Gustave Flaubert. Now, Madame Bovary was written by the French writer Gustave Flaubert and published in 1856. The Penguin Dropcaps collection edition I have is the latest translation done by Lydia Davis. But I also did listen to parts of the story originally translated by Eleanor Marx, who happens to be Karl Marx's daughter. Boy, is it a small world, eh? I've read that there are about 11 different English translations for this work. There's a lot of praise for Lydia Davis's translation, but be sure to look into the right translation for you. And I'll link any helpful videos or links about translations in the description box below, so check it out. This was Flaubert's debut novel, and he made quite a splash on the literary scene with it. It was perceived by the French public prosecutors as an obscene work, and Flaubert was charged with corrupting public morals and taken to court over it. There was a huge fear that women especially would be swayed into immoral behavior, which I gotta say is hilarious, considering Flaubert is arguing the exact same thing in the novel himself. Oh, the irony. Flaubert is arguing that what you read matters. And I agree with him to a certain level. Flaubert agreed. And I think, if anything, this novel would dissuade people more than encourage them. But the trial had the opposite effect the prosecutors wanted. I mean, which is common with censorship and banning of books in general. If the government, my teacher, or the church tells me I shouldn't read something, you better believe I'm tracking down a copy of that thing. But Flaubert won his case, and Madame Bovary became a bestseller in 1857 and is considered a pivotal work of literary realism. It is a book so full of contrasts as it takes the romanticism so well known at the time and shines a harsh, mundane, and unappealing light on it. When I finished reading it, I thought, what a deeply depressing, accurate display of human vanity and privation. Just wow. 170 years later, we can look back and see that Flaubert wrote the most amazing modern tragedy and practically invented a new literary style as a debut novel. Yeah, I guess I'll go try writing something now. Yeah. So this book is almost 170 years old. So if I'm going to spoil it for you, please know we're about to get into it. The story starts out following Charles Bovary, a young, awkward boy in school who is bullied and has an overbearing mother. His mother, Madame Bovary number 1, is the first woman we see in this novel who drew the proverbial short straw in her marriage. Monsieur Bovary is a cruel, handsome man who is a failure at all endeavors, as he knows nothing about any of them, but believes he has been cheated and that others are to blame for his misfortunes and is never satisfied with his life. It's actually interesting how much like Emma he seems to me now. Madame Bovary 1 makes the mistake of falling in love with his handsomeness, and he likes the healthy dowry she has. She loved him and doted on him, but these attentions only made her husband more distant and unpleasant to her, and he becomes a drunk who chases after other women. Her pride turns her from her husband, and she takes charge of her home and finances and swallows the rage she has for her husband. She funnels all of her love into her son, Charles. She sends him to school and wills him to make something of himself. And even though he's quite average and a bit lazy, he manages to pass his exams and become a doctor. His mother even finds him a practice and a wife. And so enters Madame Bovary number 2, an ugly older woman, twice Charles's age, with money. And ironically, the same reason Charles's father marries his mother is the same reason Charles's mother wants him to marry this woman, and it doesn't go much better. Nope. Charles thought marriage would bring him the freedom he hadn't experienced in his young life while under his mother's direction. But Madame Bovary, too, is in charge of everything. She controls all the money. She spies on him. She tells him what to do and say and bill his clients. She is desperate for affection and attention from Charles, which, just like his father, distances him from her. One day, Charles goes to treat a man with a broken leg out on a farm in the middle of nowhere, and the man's daughter is Emma. She is a pretty and gentle girl who is considered to have gotten a good education from a convent. But at this convent, she had read many romantic novels that portrayed passion and romance in a very idealized way, and so these novels became the expectation she had of her future in general. Now, I'm not really sure what convent she went to or where she found these books because the nuns I've known in my life were all pretty strict. I can't even imagine what they were like in 1856. Ooh. Charles's wife conveniently dies, which allows Charles to pursue Emma. And once she becomes Madame Bovary number 3, Emma discovers that the reality of marriage and life is way less thrilling than she had expected. And this is interesting because Emma does move up in her station in life. She no longer needs to do physical labor on the farm and now has servants do the work around the house. But she never acknowledges this and even treats her servants unkindly. She at first pursues many hobbies, but then abandons them as she sinks into depression. She makes her situation worse as she cuts off all outlets of self expression, digging further into her futile fantasies that will never come true. She is a bored bourgeoisie that can't stand her husband. Yet Charles risks his established practice to move to a new city to safeguard her health. She has a baby, but she resents the child also because she's another girl who is just as trapped as she is. Emma ends up spending money she doesn't have to keep up her aging appearance and has affairs with other men to try to fill this emptiness she feels. But soon, even those exciting endeavors feel just as boring and suffocating as her marriage. And when she ends up so in debt that she can't pay and might be taken to prison, she commits suicide to escape it. And in the end, Charles needs to sell off almost everything to cover this debt. And as he does, he discovers old letters and realizes the woman he loved and is mourning was cheating on him. He dies of a broken heart, and the daughter is sent off to poor relatives to live a hard life working in a cotton mill. Oof. Flaubert was famously known for saying that he was Madame Bovary. He considered himself a romantic, and as one reads this, you realize we're all Madame Bovary, perpetually disillusioned with the mundane state of life and reality in general. Many people focus on the women of this novel, but the truth is almost everyone is trapped in some way. And while this novel is named Madame Bovary and Emma is its main character, it's not named Emma Bovary, it's Madame Bovary. And there are 3 of them in this novel. And we get to see the impact of marriage and reality and what it does to all of them as they all respond in very different ways. One woman falls in love, but realizes her husband is not the dashing man she thought he was, and she comes to regret and despise him. But instead of allowing this to crush her, she funnels her love into her child and takes charge of the household finances to secure both her and her family's future as best she can. The second woman married Charles, but becomes insecure, controlling, and neurotic. She controls both the finances of the house and her husband, but the manner in which she claims this control makes her husband loathe her. So, when we reach Emma and see how easily she could have had a better life than either of these women, given that her husband's income is secure and that he loves her and would do almost anything for her, she is depressed that life isn't as exciting as in the romantic novels she's read. She wastes her life pining for these things that don't matter and ignoring the things that do. She kills herself. And it seems so dreadfully sad that she couldn't see any other way to live her life, considering she had a much easier life than the one she had come from. And if she had asserted herself, she could have had control of the family's finances and spending to perhaps realize some of the dreams she had, like traveling to Paris one day. But honestly, even if she had done those things, I don't think it would have solved the real problem. She was so myopically focused on herself that she couldn't see anything else. And if we're honest with ourselves, that's most of us. That's a lot of us. And even at the end, when she gets really desperate in trying to pay her debts to avoid prison. A part of me could really respect that when no matter how hopeless, she wasn't willing to sell her body to solve her problems. She at least held on to that moral standard. But she also didn't face the consequences of her actions and sought a way to avoid prison by killing herself, which left her husband in ruin. And her betrayal ended up killing him and left her daughter destitute and much worse off than where Emma even started in life. The only real justice comes in the suffering she experienced by taking a bunch of cyanide to die, which she didn't realize would be such a painful, agonizing death. She thought she was taking the easier way out, but no. In the same cruel twist of fate that reality serves us, most easy ways out are the farthest things from it. Ugh. And that chapter where she's dying is so vivid, you can almost smell her. Anything, no matter how good, bad, or exciting, can become boring if you lose perspective. And that is such a relevant theme, both then and now, for humanity. Life is mundane and repetitive and cruel. And what is one to do with that truth? Hopefully not what Emma does. Don't do that. Don't do that. No. No. But one can see how and why some people resort to substance abuse and other coping mechanisms to manage it. And I wonder if the early planting of Charles's rearing is a comment Flaubert makes about how to manage life and your expectations of it. Charles had this strange upbringing with a mixture of his mother's pampering of him and his father's efforts at hardening him with austerity. And although plain and average, until Charles discovers Emma's cheating, he was completely content with his life. And while I know he was burying his head in the sand with Emma, this contentedness is what we could all strive for. And perhaps it was this upbringing, which at first seemed flawed, that is the cause of it. Austerity and love can teach one what one can live with and without. Back at the time this was written, there was a big fear of young women reading bad romance novels. It also focuses on this idealization of romanticism. This can be seen today in these romanticized portrayals of life on social media, and we can easily find ourselves deeply dissatisfied, even though life, generally speaking, is the best it's ever been that we have record of. What these romantic novels and notions on social media don't do is deal in reality. And unless someone is sensible about the curation of these messages, it can lead to disappointment. There is no addressing of the mundane, everyday grind, and the expectation that reality should conform to those romantic notions is delusional. But it's not just Madame Bovary that lives in a fantasy world that doesn't live up to her expectations, where she has little to no control of her situation. Charles does also. He lives in a fantasy where he believes his marriage is doing well. His mother chooses everything for him, including his first wife. His mother even chose his profession. But the moment Charles chooses something for himself, Emma, it turns out to be his ruin. And in the same way, when Emma chooses to manufacture the life she wants and racks up serious debt, it turns out to be her ruin as well. Emma constantly feels trapped in her life. But the truth is, she had never been more free. She never would have had such freedoms when she was single and living with her father. But the more she is given, the more unhappy she becomes. The easier her life was, the more it seemed to bother her. She becomes like Charles's father, and she sees that even when she does have affairs with other men that start out as exciting, that even those feel as boring as her marriage over time. Everything, even the things she wanted, disappoint her. And it's constantly hammered into the reader that Charles was such a mediocre person, as if Emma was somehow above him. But the reality is that Emma was mediocre too. Emma isn't good at anything she does. She wasn't good at her work on her father's farm. She wasn't a virtuous Catholic. She wasn't respectable at any of her hobbies. Everything was transient to her. She never applied herself or cultivated the discipline to become better. She was average herself, probably worse so than Charles. But the difference was that Charles put effort into his studies to pass his exam. The only thing that singled Emma out from the rest was that she was pretty. That will only get one so far. and it doesn't last for anyone. This book is seen by some as subversive, which is why Flaubert got so much trouble over it. But I don't really see it as that. I don't see this as this attack on marriage or an endorsement of adultery. I think he was just trying to expose the reality most people struggle with. He is showing people that the passionate romanticization of love is an oversimplified cliche of reality. And maybe it is this that is the epitome of the bourgeoisie problem, is the luxury of time to pursue one's passions like reading or art, that are the thing that make the satisfaction with one's life unattainable. Is the luxury of boredom the problem? Maybe? There are some pretty harsh illustrations of reality that Flaubert is dealing out to the reader here. The old man at the party is an example of reality. Emma sees him as some glorified celebrity because he was once Marie Antoinette's lover. She is mesmerized by him, but he is old and dripping sauce all over the napkin that's childishly tied around his neck, and was a worry to his family as he irresponsibly spent his entire fortune. Had he been anyone else, Emma would have found his physical decline and his behavior repulsive, just like it was with the blind beggar. But both these two men's realities are not understood by Emma. Both are penniless. Both are alone. But the glamour of one is enough to blind her entirely. The blind beggar is the harsh ugliness of reality that Emma ironically doesn't want to see. And the blind man can literally not see reality, but is always singing and seems happier or more at peace with life than Emma is. The beggar is physical deterioration, and Emma and the other old man, moral deterioration. And the same can be seen with that kid with the clubbed foot. He seemed perfectly content with his foot and doesn't really care about receiving surgery. And even after the botched surgery, he always chooses to see the bright side of everything and made his peace with events rather than blaming Charles for almost killing him. He was used to his suffering, and so it didn't really seem like misery at all. And then there was that masterfully done scene at the agricultural show where Rodolphe's fake declaration of love happens while the award for the best manure in the area is awarded. Oh my gosh, that was so well done. So poetic. And even Emma's dog's name, Jolly, means free in Arabic. And the dog ends up running away from Emma during the move to the new city, which makes her sad. The dog's freedom brought her sadness. She wanted the dog as her captive, just as she feels like a captive in her own life. And on a side note, the name, Jolly, was used by Victor Hugo in The Hunchback from Notre Dame for Esmeralda's goat in 1831. And I wonder if this was a nod to Hugo, considering he's one of Flaubert's favorite writers. The true action in this story is how Flaubert describes the constant shifting and changing in Emma's mind. So much of the conflict is cerebral. One moment she is happy, and the next she is dissatisfied, and picking apart the happiness she just experienced. Flaubert shows us each evolution into disappointment. One moment she's thinking one thing, and the next she has thought her way out of it. And somehow, Flaubert makes all this thought relatable and interesting. And in this way, the reader feels both contempt, but also compassion for Emma and all these characters. And I think there were many parts where a person could really be so irritated at Emma, but it's also really important to empathize with her. I could really see sort of what she was coming from and how this disillusionment, right or wrong, self-centered or not, I think we can all see how a person can end up disappointed with the reality that falls so short of the dreams one might have had, no matter how unrealistic. I think people could sympathize with that because it's a really human thing. But I really loved this book. I flew through it and really enjoyed the writing. And considering that we're reading this in translation, I can only imagine how amazing it is to read in French. Have you read Madame Bovary? Did you like it? Did you hate it? Were you able to sympathize with Emma? Please let me know in the comments down below. Please like and subscribe so that more people can discover some great books. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.